Welcome to the Tuesday, February 16th regular business board meeting of the Board of School Directors. We will now have presentation from, actually, I'll turn it over to Mr. Copeland. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We have two very exciting presentations this evening. The first, Dr. Martino, principal of Kinwood Elementary School, will give us an update on what's going on at his school.
There we go. Good evening. I've told I was to keep this 3 to 5 minutes, so I will try to do that. I thought, what would I present from Kinwood Elementary School? I think the best thing to represent Kinwood, I could sit here and give you a list of all the wonderful things that are happening and the things we're involved in, but really, I want to talk about very quickly and go through the things that are happening that you won't see in a test or you won't see in a box score, the things that are happening at Kinwood that basically we celebrate on a daily basis. First of all, being a part of Kinwood it's all about relationships. Relationships are absolutely everything. It's about developing meaningful connections for students, but also about the development of our school families. If you look, the student there with the fire hat on, basically he was a student in our diagnostic class who was petrified of fire alarms. By the end of the year, not only was he not petrified of fire alarms, but he was running them. We happened to have the fire marshal there the one day, and you would have thought it was Disney World all over again. It was wonderful for him. We also have our school families. Every professional in the building has their own school family. I have 8 students in grades 1 through 5 that I work with. Once a month, we meet together as a school family to not only develop collaboration from grade levels, but across grade levels. But more importantly, we do a universal theme that we all do with our families to talk about and discuss. Actually, we're going to be talking about our gender stereotypes is the one coming up for the end of this month to talk about with all our teams to work through. We also believe in a very holistic end of things of the students. Not only are we talk about second step, but we're very embraced in the whole mindfulness program. This is actually a group of students. We actually run morning yoga for students who have high anxiety. We used to be the butterflies group that we used to talk about it. Now we not only talk about it, but they come in for morning yoga to kind of decompress and get ready for the day as they go through. We also run something known as a 2x10s. And you've heard it said before, and if you've been in my building, you've seen it. It's 2 minutes a day for 10 days. Any student that you feel you're not connected to, you make a connection with them. You go through that. You actually put it on your schedule, because if it's not on your schedule, it's not going to happen. I do the same. In fact, Mr. Klein was in my building when I was with my 2x10 student. We have a little game that we play that we go back and forth to make a connection. But we felt like knowing that if I don't know the student most certainly doesn't know me and doesn't know the school. So embracing that and working through that, that's what makes it, as we always say, a Kinwood thing and understanding each other and celebrating. We're also driven by active learning through the student's eyes or their lens and expanding their curiosity. And in doing that, once again, it goes back to you do all these things at the beginning of the year, but you got to really know the kid. And not only where they're from or other difference, but what makes them special. And that's what makes them different, which is an amazing thing. The one thing we also talk about is student voice. You got to have a voice, understand what your voice is, and know what they are. But more importantly, you got to be able to share that voice. We do another thing, and of course we're running numbers here called 10x2s. 10x2s, for every 10 minutes of instruction, there's 2 minutes of reflection. And if you come around to the classrooms at Kinwood, that reflection is shoulder partners, student-to-student engagement. We stop, we reflect, it's 10 seconds, 30 seconds, talk to a shoulder partner. Now share out. Is there something you heard that you would like to share or something that you would like to share out to the topic we're talking about? Too many times we sit in classrooms and kids have 1, 2, 3 hands that just go up, and that's the only kids that get to talk. Between those student interactions, we create this student engagement, which culminates to our 5th grade promotion. And if you've ever been a part of our 5th grade promotion, it's pretty amazing. I do nothing for the 5th grade promotion. My 5th grade teachers do nothing for the 5th grade promotion. It is completely run entirely by our 5th grade students. We sit back, they designed it, They run it. They go through all the different parts of it, who's going to speak, what the themes are, from start to finish. All I go up there for the last 3 minutes and celebrate the event and walk out. It's pretty amazing how it all culminates into that thing as well. The other thing we try and embrace, and we started this year, is themes. Every 2 months, we present different themes for the students to embrace. In the beginning of the year was Super Kids. These are students and these are kids who are their age that did have a voice, and their voice was heard. So looking at them as different role models of not only what you can do, what you can be, but what you can do with a voice if it's strong enough and the desire is there. Our entire building embraced last year school-wide learning through academic choice. Academic choice goes right back to the understanding of looking at not only assessment, but education through the lens of the child, providing them with opportunities to not only express their own success, but assessments through things that they connected with throughout. Meaning, okay, demonstrate what we're going to be doing, but maybe you want to do it in the form of a poem or a wanted poster or a commercial, any way that you want to share out. That particular student up there with the crayfish was one of my 2x10s. The story with him is basically he was my 2x10. He loved crayfish. I heard that he loved crayfish. I was doing an observation of a 3rd grade classroom, and I shared this with all my families before. I'm sitting in there in the classroom, and they're talking about crayfish. So I went down and I sprinted down to the kid's classroom, and lo and behold, he had a crayfish shirt on with it as well. So I brought him up. He was a 1st grader. I brought him up to the 3rd grade classroom, showed him the live crayfish, and he did a 10-minute demonstration talking and telling all the kids in 3rd grade everything about crayfish. So it was pretty amazing to provide that student that opportunity. Everything in balance is embraced through our whole understanding of a growth mindset. It's celebrating rigor, celebrating what we call mistakes, or celebrating the problem-based learning that we do. When we go through the whole process of learning, it's all hands-on. It's got to be hands-on. What you see in the upper right-hand corner is students going through our STEM initiative, through our coding. We now have a partnership with Lower Merion High School AP computer science students. They're actually going to start in March coming down and working with our 5th graders, our entire 5th grade team, in working through coding and technology and hands-on opportunities that they have. The other one down at the bottom is pretty amazing. We talk about lenses of students. Those students are actually developing different things for the project that they're doing, but that next group of the students, they built birdhouses. They didn't build birdhouses because we like birds. Birds are great. But they built birdhouses because the teachers were like, look, last year's group and last year's group, they didn't get this concept. So let's take all these objectives that we have and let's embed it into a hands-on activity. So they built these birdhouses with all these different concepts through the mathematical process built into them, and then celebrated afterwards with an assessment of that understanding. And the results were awesome. Once again, that whole understanding of you got to get your hands dirty. You got to get involved in it. You got to have fun. Here are kids working through the different system of things, but they're seeing what different types of conductors there are. But the bottom line is you got to do it through their lens, not our lens, their lens. But the only way to do that is to find out what their lens absolutely is. The other part of this whole thing is our community. And I don't just mean our parents, but our parents are amazing. They give us the gift of support all the time at Kinwood. But our entire educational community, whether it's our Treats for Troops, whether it's our Crayola initiative we're doing, Healthy Hearts, and one that's near and dear to my heart, if you've been a part of it, our Cupcake Challenge for Cal, for their neurological disease. And obviously Cal would have started at Kinwood this year. So we've raised, I think every year, it's anywhere between $20,000 to $25,000 with that initiative every year through Cal's Cupcake Challenge as a part of our community. The community also, and that meaning our school community, embraces the arts. We have over 90% of our students involved in some form of music or arts in 4th and 5th grade, which is connected across all levels of not only the community, but also Kinwood Elementary School. But last but not least, this doesn't just happen. We definitely have a group of teachers and professionals that are dedicated to learning and professional learning in itself. Teachers this year have not only developed individual professional inquiry based on student-specific learning, but we've also collaborated all this understanding through our use of professional learning communities. This is kind of our first venture into it this year, and embracing it and understanding it. but it's all about the same thing that we're asking the kids to do. Work from an area of strength, collaborate, problem-based learning. The teachers developed their first inquiry in the fall, and then in the winter, they reflected on that inquiry and said, you know, the big thing was, look, it could have blew up in your face. It could have done this. It doesn't matter. It's all about the learning process. So they came back in the winter, modified some things, and now working through another one and going through the spring. But once again, the birdhouses, all the different collaborations, the 2x10s, they don't just happen. It takes a team, and most importantly, it takes an amazing village. Bottom line is, you know, we are Kinwood. It's all about relationships, student-driven, going through their lens, a growth mindset, absolutely strong school community, and teachers that are most certainly committed to professional learning. That's my school family. Thank you.
Dr. Martino, if one didn't know better, one would think you're somewhat proud of what's going on.
Most certainly.
Board have any questions or comments for Dr. Martino?
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a second presentation. I don't know how you're going to follow that. This is from our bond resolution presentation. Hold on to your seats. Mr. Willard?
Well, I do have some exciting news for you. So, you have in front of you a document with a green cover page. I'm going to walk you through that, and then David Twaddell from Roads and Sign is here. He's your bond counsel with a resolution if you'd like to proceed later on. For the past couple of months, the financing team has been working on all the paperwork to refund two of your prior bond issues, a series of 2006 and a series of 2007. We did all that, have the credit rating in place, and the bidding started at noon today. And that's what we're here to talk about. So on page 2, there were 7 different underwriting syndicates that bid on your bonds. The lowest true interest cost, which is how we award the bidding, was submitted by PNC Capital Markets. So if you'd like to proceed this evening, you would be accepting their proposal. It remains valid until tomorrow morning. 2.20 is their true interest cost, as shown there. And this bond issue will also have the ability to be refunded early, should you choose to do so in the future, March of 2024. On pages 4 and 5, these are the old bond issues that we're going to refund. On page 4, in column number 3, this shows you the interest rates for the old bond issue done in 2006. I'm sure they were very attractive at the time, basically in the 4% area. On page number 5, this is the series of 2007, the larger issue, and most of these interest rates have a 5% coupon on them. On pages 6 and 7, these are the escrow accounts that get set up with the proceeds of the new bond issue. They're invested in U.S. Treasuries until the old bonds are redeemed. On page number 8, this is the new bond issue. If you approve the resolution, these would be the coupons and interest rates. In column number 4, you see the yields on the new bonds start at 0.55, or just over 0.5%, and they go up to 3.05% in the year 2032. In column 11 are the interest rates. You save some money in the current budget year, and then there are additional savings spread out over the next 5 budget years. And so that would be the difference between the old payments and the new payments. So everything is in order. If you approve the resolution, we would purchase the U.S. Treasuries for the escrow account tomorrow morning, and then settlement would occur roughly 30 days. It's March 22nd is what the targeted settlement date is.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. Are there any questions from the board at this time for Mr. Willard?
Does Mr. Twaddell want to?
Good evening. I have set before you the final form of the resolution for your consideration during your meeting. As Mr. Williard indicated, acceptance of the resolution would be authorization to issue the bonds, to accept the purchase contract from PNC and lock in those savings. The resolution is in the customary format. I will mention for the record that a copy has been available since the first advertisement of your intention to consider the resolution published last week. Should you take favorable action, we will arrange for publication of a second notice, which will include the final price of the bonds and the range of interest rates. You are authorizing all the appropriate filings with the Department of Community and Economic Development, authorizing the bonds to be issued, instructing your bond trustee the steps that they need to take. We are approving 2 bond retirement agreements. Those are the escrows that Mr. Williard indicated, and we will be supervising the bidding process for those treasuries tomorrow morning, as he indicated, to ensure compliance with the tax code requirements there. Be happy to answer any questions you may have now or when you consider this, but otherwise it's before you for action.
Thank you. Questions? Dr. O'Leary, please.
First of all, I want to thank Vic and everybody else involved for their work on this. I appreciate all the effort that went into figuring out what should be done and when and explaining it to everybody. I also just wanted to comment that this was discussed at least 2 finance meetings, and it's actually very similar to something we had done the year before. So there's been a total of about 4 or 5 meetings on this. So if you don't see us asking lots of questions, it's because we've spent probably 5 or 6 hours on it already.
So the other reason they're not asking any questions is because it was a real good bond sale. And so this goes into the deliberations as time goes on. We're very early into the budget season, but this gives the board some opportunities and some ideas about where things may go. So this was a good thing.
Thank you. We will now have audience recognition for public comment. If you could come and sign in with Ms. LaPera if you're interested in making public comment. On agenda items only, thank you. There's a 3-minute time limit. If you could tell us your name and as well as where you reside in the district. Seeing none.
No, I'm sorry. Mr.
you
Walker
do have
has
someone.
already
Okay.
signed in
Please.
earlier, prior to the meeting.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Walk. I live in Gladwin, and I have some questions about the bond program. First of all, on your website, there is some discussion about the budgets, that amount which was projected as income and that amount which was projected as expenses. And it turns out, as we've pointed out before, that they have been understated dramatically, and there have been surpluses dramatically. If you go to page 4 of the, I'll call it a prospectus for the bonds, I'm sorry, table 4, you will find that there is no reference whatsoever to the significant surpluses that were obtained during each of the tax increases for the years in question. And therefore, that document is false. Now, the reason I bring it up to you is this is a Securities and Exchange Commission type document. If you don't put truthful information in that document, you expose the district to civil and criminal penalties. So therefore, I urge you and council to amend this document to show the amounts by which the tax increases have demonstrated surpluses, significant surpluses by our calculations, over $40 million during the period. Otherwise, it is a misleading document because it seems to show that the school district has not obtained surpluses during each of those years, when in fact it has. The second question I have is, why aren't these bonds being first offered to Lower Merion residents, the people who are paying the taxes here? If these bonds are so great, and they are, the grade is terrific, why aren't they being offered to us first? Why can't we buy them? I mean, after all, we're paying the taxes that are going to retire these bonds. Why aren't they offered to us? They haven't been. The other thing is, there's no mention anywhere of what are the costs the district is incurring for floating this bond issue with this particular group of people? What competition was there for bidding on the costs associated with floating this issue? If these bonds had been offered first to Lower Merion residents, for example, you would have had virtually no costs. How much commission is being charged by PNC Bank? How much are you paying? What are you going to get net from the sale of these bonds? None of these questions have been answered, and I think they're important questions for a board of directors to ask, so you make sure that you're getting the maximum return for this very critical and long-term financing arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm trying to say his name. Mr. Gleason?
Good evening. I'm Stephen Gleason from Rosemont. Tonight we're considering the bonds as well as some other proposals for continued expenditures. Currently, the budget that's before the board, if approved, the district will be paying $31,000 per year per student next year, which is more by far than any other district in Pennsylvania, and in fact 55.8% more than Tredyffrin Easttown, which has surpassed Lower Merion in nearly every statistical measure of educational excellence. A district spokesman recently told the Mainline Times that the board prefers to engage in, quote, constructive, meaningful dialogue around the preliminary budget, end quote. Yet your own agenda states that, quote, it is the policy of the board not to engage in dialogue with or respond to questions from the audience during the meeting, end quote. So which one is it? Do you want constructive dialogue or not? Will you answer questions from the public or not? The choices are yours. In hopes that you will choose to dialogue with the community, here are a few suggestions for this year's budget. Reduce and return to the taxpayers the $55 million in restricted and unrestricted funds that you are holding. These funds are supposedly earmarked for future pension obligations and capital improvements, but you seek exceptions from Act 1 every single year for pension obligations, and your own website states that all of the 10 schools have already been renovated. Furthermore, these funds have been accumulated through deception, as you have repeatedly approved budgets that show a deficit, while in fact the district has consistently operated at a multi-million-dollar surplus every single year. Number 2, instruct the superintendent and business manager to prepare and deliver for approval a 2016-17 budget with no tax increase. These administrators are your employees, yet you don't even question why we spend $31,000 per year annually, or how we might balance the budget without yet another tax increase. Number 3, apply the $6 million in annual debt service savings that will be achieved by refinancing some of your general obligation bonds to immediate tax relief. We just heard Superintendent Copeland say that this refinance will provide opportunities and ideas about where we go with things. Please give us your commitment that all of these savings will be applied to immediate tax relief. 4, institute a technology fee to pay for the laptops that are provided to every public high school student in the district. It is unconscionable that senior citizens and others struggling to afford their property taxes are being forced to buy laptops for every public school student in the district, most of whom already have or can afford to buy their own computers. Finally, eliminate the late bus service, which is provided 2 times per day for students in the public and high school and middle schools in violation of the Pennsylvania School Code, which requires identical, that's the exact word in the code, identical bus service for public and non-public students. Every other district has eliminated this wasteful and illegal service.
Thank you.
Why can't you?
Thank you for your time.
Our whole community suffers, and you have no one to blame for yourself, and you wonder why you're constantly being litigated. It's because you don't engage in dialogue. Think about it.
Thank you.
I don't know. Were there any general answers that, Vic, you had about the bond situation? Or Mr. Willard? Or we can ask that they be submitted another time.
Well, the official statement was sent into Moody's, and it's been approved. We've had due diligence calls. I think everything's in order as far as I know with it.
Thank you.
Sorry, there was a question about offering them to private citizens. Is that something that a school district would typically do?
Well, I think if a retail investor has an interest, I think PNC would be happy to sell them bonds. It's just a matter of calling PNC.
So we will move on with the agenda. I will approve the minutes from the following Board of School Directors meetings, or we will approve. January 25th, regular board meeting, February 8th, Education Committee supplementary regular board meeting, and accept the following committee meeting minutes. January 28th, Legislative, February 1st, Curriculum, February 5th, Policy, February 11th, Facilities and Purchasing. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? All, sorry, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move to the superintendent update.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. Just a couple of quick notes of interest for everyone. First, I'm pleased to announce that students from Bala Cynwyd and Welsh Valley Middle Schools traveled on Saturday, February 6th, to participate in the Pennsylvania Technology Student Association's Region 5 Conference. This was Bala Cynwyd Middle School's 13th trip to this TSA Regional Conference, where they earned 31 qualifying wins. 48 students from local middle schools competed against other middle school students from southeastern Pennsylvania in approximately 30 different science, technology, engineering, and leadership events. But the Bala Cynwyd Middle School students have been working diligently throughout the school year in preparation for the Region 5 Conference. Congratulations to them. The Welsh Valley Middle School TSA earned 79 qualifying wins at the 2016 Region 5 TSA Conference for Southeastern Pennsylvania STEM students. This was the largest number of wins in the team's 11-year history. 55 students had been researching, designing, and building various technologies to compete in the 34 engineering events offered at the competition. The Welsh Valley students were able to amass an incredible 42 top 3 awards, in which 16 were first place finishes. Both middle school teams will now look to improve upon their project work in anticipation of the Pennsylvania State TSA Conference to be held in April. Congratulations to all of the award winners, and good luck in dominance in April. I'd also like to congratulate Jonathan Kinney and Aiden Elwood from Central Monco Technical High School. They participated in the annual Skills USA District 2 competitions. Jonathan got a gold medal and Aiden silver. So we're doing real well. That concludes my report, or highlights. Now let me move on to human resources. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached human resource actions HR 1 through HR 6.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The board wants to offer condolences to the family of Thomas Fisher, who died on November 25th. He was employed in the district from September 64 until his retirement in 93. We'll move now to the report of the Curriculum Committee. Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you. The Curriculum Committee of the Board met on February 1st at 8:30 a.m. The first presentation topic was on extended day kindergarten. So extended day kindergarten began in the 13-14 year for a small number of students in each school, about 40 total, to provide additional reading, math, and speech language support. It runs from March to June, although this year it has begun actually mid-February. The summary of the presentation is that extended day kindergarten appears to be a highly effective intervention for students as measured by progress over the kindergarten years. Ongoing study is required to determine how much progress is enduring and how much progress is due to developmental changes. However, the teachers of the kindergarten students over the last 2 years are strongly supportive of the program, and many of the students who have not retained the gains in second grade are being assessed for special education services. The administration is seeking to add a dedicated reading specialist, and furthermore, they're looking to see if they can support an extra section for kids who can't participate because of the time that it's offered. The second presentation topic was on the 2015 Fall Special Education Audit. The Bureau of Special Education monitors all districts at least once over a 6-year period to ensure compliance with federal and state regulations. The administration produced a 158-page report in response to the requested information. The process includes a random evaluation of a number of students as well as on-site visits that review cases, our policies, notices, plans, outcomes, and performance data. They interview administration and instructional personnel. They do classroom observations, and they interview parents, students, and teachers. So it's a very thorough process. We receive special commendation for our involvement of parents and personnel training. We were also asked to provide corrective action in the area of least restrictive environment. Specifically, the state average is 3.3 placed out of district, and ours this year, or previous year, I guess, was 3.9% of students. So we're looking into that. So beyond the sort of excellent evaluation of our compliance, which is, of course, what we are appreciative of but expect, the administration is using the data to look at issues beyond compliance. In particular, there were surveys of parents and teachers which indicated that parents would like more training and teachers would like more time to collaborate, and we're looking into those issues. We also had a brief update about the Keystone exams, which have been delayed until academic year 18-19. The administration is continuing to provide labs to students and is evaluating the impact on all of our programs, and will come back to the board with a report of the recommendations. Current 9th grade students will be required to pass the Keystone exams when they graduate. So the moratorium is short-lived, at least at this point. In addition, we reviewed a contract. The administration is recommending the adoption of third-party agreements to allow us to work with 3 nationally respected experts, Ben Akalik, Heidi Hayes-Jacob, and Allison Zamuda. Did I say it correctly? Not to exceed $75,000, and they've been engaged with our strategic planning team to bring an external expertise and national perspective to the innovative and transformative work we're doing with our strategic plan. So the consultants are available to our leadership teams to answer questions about the 5 pathways we've established and to help us focus on pathways that are validated by research and practice. The committee voted unanimously to support these contracts and send them to facilities and purchasing for review. And the next meeting, of course, I always forget to write this down. This is my, do you know when the next meeting is, Denise? Sorry, I apologize. February 29th. So our March meeting is actually February 29th at 8:30 in the morning. Thank you.
Okay, so the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached overnight field trips from Harridan High School, Lower Merion High School under Section B. We also recommend the approval of the independent contractor agreements with Allison Zamuda, Heidi Hayes-Jacobs, and Ben Akalik, not to exceed $25,000 each. And that's under that section, Section 8.
Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Under Section 9, Student Services. The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves student service items as listed, agreements for students receiving non-district educational services, SS1 through SS2.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee. Mr. Driscoll?
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. We met this past Thursday, February 11th at 8:30 in this room, and we began the meeting going over, excuse me, let me start again. We did go through the review and approve the list of bills as standard procedure. We then reviewed and approved purchasing report, which included 4 items. 3 of them were for new buses. As we have about 120 buses, we replace some every couple of years before they wear out. 4 new buses, 30 passenger, 3 buses at 48 passenger, and 9 buses at 78 passengers. We also then reviewed a contract for improving cellular signal in Penn Valley. Penn Valley Elementary is a very old school. Concrete and steel was not built for cell service, so we're having a lot of issues of people being able to be found in that building. So we've approved a contract to improve that cellular signal for $35,844. We then discussed and approved the independent contracts, Ms. Zamuda, Dr. Kalick, and Dr. Hayes-Jacobs. We then went on and reviewed and approved a master services agreement and an individual work order with Snyder Hoffman Associates. The individual work order is for Snyder Hoffman to design and install a new boiler, install a backup generator, and provide HVAC modification to BC Middle School. The existing boiler is approximately 30 years old. We can replace this boiler with a more efficient boiler and avoid future maintenance costs. This is a professional services contract for a not-to-exceed amount of $25,420. The equipment that will be installed in the future will be purchased through a separate contract. We then reviewed and approved a contract with Wayne Moving and Storage Services. As we prepare for renovating the DAO, we need to move office personnel and various other items to make space for construction. This contract is for a not-to-exceed amount of $35,600. We reviewed and approved a reservation contract with Mobile Lease. To meet our enrollment growth at Penguin Elementary, we will need to install temporary classrooms by this September. At the present time, we need to complete site work design before we can execute a full contract with Mobile Lease. So this contract merely reserves the temporary units and gives both parties time to complete other outstanding issues so that a full contract can be written and approved in the future. We then reviewed and approved change orders for our existing construction projects. For Welsh Valley and Bala Cynwyd, we had multiple change orders as we pushed these to close out. There were many, many issues, but I will go over them very high level of addressing plumbing, flashing, and electrical issues. The total cost for all of these is $41,826.47. We are still within our contingency budget on these projects. We then had another change order for a decreased amount of $2,084.42 for roof repairs at Penn Valley Elementary. We had done an inspection previously, and upon further inspection, the roof was not as damaged as in many spots, so we did not have to do as much reconstruction and repair as we initially anticipated, so therefore the decrease. And then we also did an update from Reynolds Construction on the existing construction projects. As we mainly discussed the removal of temporary modules from Welsh Valley. They are still there. And the change orders and pending change orders as we approach finishing work. And again, we discussed temporary permanent construction at Penn Win and did discuss briefly what the DAO construction will be. Our next meeting will be March 10th at 8:30 in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll.
Under Business Office and Finance, I'm going to take items B, C, D, E, and H in one motion unless the board would like me to separate any particular item. Seeing that there are none, the administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the list of bills, approve the financial report for January 2016, accept donation of a plaque and tree planting in honor of Marie Huggins, retired employee from the Gladwin Elementary School staff, approve the rate increases for per diem, substitute professional, and nurses effective February 29, 2016, and declare surplus equipment as surplus property and authorize the disposition thereof as per the attachment.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Just back to subject D, with gratitude, the board accepts a donation of a plaque and tree planting in honor of Marie Hudgens.
The next item, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached resolution to issue general obligation bonds of the school district to be designated as general obligation bonds, series of 2016, for the purpose of refunding the school district's outstanding general obligation bonds, series of 2006, and advance refunding of the school district's outstanding general obligations bonds, series of 2007. And this will require a roll call.
Any questions? Again, there were a number of meetings related to this bond series consideration. Is there a motion to approve? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So, Ms. LaPera, you'll do a roll call for
Yes,
us?
thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pollard?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Fetterman?
Yes.
Ms. Ackman?
Yes.
Ms. Di Bonaventura?
Yeah.
Dr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Dr. Van Lynch?
Yes.
All in favor, motion passes.
The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the membership services budget of the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit for the fiscal year July 1st, 2016 to June 30, 2017, with a proposed charge to Lower Merion School District of $131,343. And that will also require a roll call vote, please.
Any questions? Okay, I have a question. I
Sure.
noticed that our fee to MCIU increased slightly.
Correct.
Is that because of enrollment? Is it based on
That
number of
it's
students?
based upon enrollment and wealth.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any additional questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I so moved.
There's a second?
Second.
Ms. LaPera, roll call.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll?
Yes.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yes.
Mr. Fetterman?
Yes.
Ms. Ackman?
Yes.
Ms. Di Bonaventura?
Yes.
Dr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Ms. Pollard?
Yes.
And Dr. Van Lynch?
Yes.
All in favor, motion passes.
Thank you.
Under Facilities and Operations, I'm going to take items A through E in one motion. Mr. Driscoll went over these in detail. So with that, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the awarding of bids for new gasoline A school buses, a wheelchair accessible type C, and diesel rear engine D school buses, and to also improve these cell signal at Penn Valley Elementary School. And as per the attachment. Approve the master agreement for professional services with Snyder Hoffman Associates, Inc., and the individual work order number 1 for a not-to-exceed amount of $25,420. Approve the proposal for relocation services from Wayne Moving and Storage Company for a not-to-exceed amount of $35,600. Approve the agreement for reservation of modular units for Penwyn Elementary School, and approve the change orders for additions and alterations at Walsh Valley Middle School and roof repairs at Penn Valley Elementary School.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the Policy Committee meeting update by Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. The Policy Committee met on February 5th in this room at 8:30 a.m. We discussed Policy and Administrative Regulation 118, which is for independent study. The policy and AR provide guidelines and procedures for obtaining an independent study course at the high school level. It was the subject of discussion for many months. It was suspended at one point and brought back to us. Policy and AR 206 were discussed, assignment of pupils within the district. This policy and AR describe the process and plan for a concept called partner schooling. In action, this policy would allow students registering after a certain deadline to be determined by administration to be placed in a feeder school that may not be their home school. This may or may not be a permanent change based on the wishes of the family involved. We anticipate this will largely affect new student registration in the district. Additional communications will go out to affected parties upon approval of this policy. Also, the AR is not yet finalized. We will be getting more input into the actual procedure and into the AR at a future date. Finally, we went over policy 810 and AR 810, student transportation. The recommended changes for this policy relate to the adoption of surveillance cameras on school buses to record both video and sound. There will potentially be 4 cameras per bus. Details about the cameras and purchasing the technology will be further discussed at a future Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting. We also discussed in detail who would be allowed to view any taped material and when. Additional changes were made for consistency with policy in AR 709, building security. The next meeting of the policy committee is scheduled for Thursday, March 3rd at 8:30 a.m.
If it's all right, Dr. Van Lynch, I just wanted on policy 206, the assignment of pupils within the district, for those who may be not familiar with this, this has been debated significantly by the policy committee over the last several months. This is a policy which will allow us to move students, largely who are new into the district, in spots where we have open seats, and which will allow us to be to slow up, in essence, some decision making that we may otherwise have to make in terms of our growing enrollment. We've got an enrollment in 2006. I think the enrollment in Lower Merion schools was about 6,800. We are now at 8,300. We're scheduled to go to 9,000 in the next 5 years, and if those numbers hold, as much as 9,800 in the next 5 years after that. So this is a process that we're going to have a trial, and if it works out, move forward. But it will allow us to be to hold up a little bit in some of our decision making. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Copeland, and thank you, Ms. Robinson, for that report. The following policies have been reviewed for second reading. Policy 118, independent study. Policy 206, assignment of pupils within the district, and Policy 810, student transportation. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now consider the revised 16-17 calendar. Is that correct? The administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached revised 16-17 school year calendar. Did you need to speak to that at all?
Only that we may come back with one more revision. But I'd still appreciate a vote tonight. What we're also looking at is whether we can match up our staff development with primary voting dates, so that the schools that we have, which are currently used as voting locations, could have a staff development day on primary days. We're already closed during election days. We want to see if we can line that up. So I may come back to you with something next month just to amend this portion of it.
Great. Thank you. Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved with the possibility of an addition of the agenda at a future date.
As a revised, yeah, but for now, as it stands?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll now have the Legislative Committee report by Dr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. As Melissa mentioned, the governor signed a moratorium on the Keystone exams as a requirement for graduation until the class of 2018-19. So the current freshmen, all of the students will be taking Keystones, but they're not a graduation requirement until this year's freshman class. The governor also today signed a bill that will give us greater flexibility for how we make up emergency days. And I think a lot of the details of that are to be determined, but they're going to try to help us out a little bit in case there's a huge blizzard or other state of emergency. The Legislative Committee has been working on the forum. We were hoping to fit it in the early March break between the legislative sessions, but it doesn't look like that's going to work out. So we're going to try for late April, and that date will be announced as soon as we have one. For those of you who aren't aware, the Legislative Forum is a day that's open to the public to come in and meet with the legislators, and the legislators will come in and talk about what's going on and their opinions on issues mostly around education. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 25th. We're going to cancel that meeting, and the next meeting will be March 30th in this room.
Thank you, Dr. O'Leary. We will now have audience recognition on non-agenda items as well as agenda items. Again, if you could sign in with Ms. LaPera, 3-minute time limit. If you could tell us your name and where you reside in the district. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Arthur Walk. I live in Gladwin. I wanted to point out several items. The superintendent mentioned that the attendance is growing at this really rapid rate, and you're expecting 9,800 students. Well, you just misrepresented in a prospectus for your bonds that your enrollment was a fraction of that. Not only that, you said your enrollment, if you take a look at your own numbers, your enrollment goes down as of 2020. It's not up. Nowhere near 9,800, nowhere near 9,000. In fact, it's about 7,800, I believe, last time I looked. And it's in your own document that you just supplied to the public to buy into your bonds. I'm trying to explain to you, you cannot do that on such a document without incurring a gigantic potential risk for the school district and their financing. It's very critical that those documents be accurate, and it's unfair to the public to inflate these attendance numbers when your own documents, your own publications, your own legal documents say otherwise. I'm very concerned and upset about this independent contractor agreement where you're agreeing to pay 3 people $4,000 a day. I don't know anybody in this room who makes $4,000 a day. But I can't understand that with a budget as large as yours, you don't have the in-house capability to do anything that you're spending $4,000 a day or $75,000 total for 3 people to do. If you don't, you can hire it. But to spend that kind of money is an outrage as a taxpayer. The other item I'd like to point out is I didn't know that kids were allowed to use their cell phones in school. It's been a long time since I've been in school. But I'd like to know, and of course I know I don't get an answer tonight, is whether or not there was any competition for that contract for $35,000 to increase cell phone coverage within a building. Because that sounds like a heck of a lot of money to me. And I think you ought to be looking at it. And the last thing I'd like to point out to you, or actually is 2 things. I also note that your sponsorships for special programs, you've only gotten $5,000. Why aren't you out there to the businesses in Lower Merion who depend on the students who graduate from these schools, who you say are so well educated, to contribute some money for special programs, more than $5,000. You could finance all of your special programs privately instead of imposing them on the taxpayers. And lastly, I'd like to point out something about bonds, because it's obvious to me you are unfamiliar with bonds. Your 5% bond generated about a 3.5% return to the people who bought them. Nobody bought a bond that paid 5%, except those guys who left town because they had such a great deal going. So what's happening is you lost 1.5% worth of interest that you could have had on those bonds because you decided to use these guys who have a lock on the bond system. You need to be looking into that so that you can get that money yourselves and give us tax relief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another speaker?
Yes. Ms. Perry?
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Janet Perry, and I'm from Ardmore. On January 29th, 2016, as you well know, Mr. Walk filed a complaint against the Lower Merion School District alleging basically that the school district has improperly handled district financing and the budgeting process. It asked for $55 million in damages and various forms of equitable relief, including comprehensive supervision of school district activities by the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. It is styled as a class action to include all Lower Merion taxpayers as plaintiffs in the action. I am a Lower Merion taxpayer. I want to clearly and unequivocally state that I am not a member of this class, and I believe I can confidently predict that most Lower Merion residents would not want to be in this class. I'm not going to go into the financial discussion that was had tonight, except to recommend that people who have questions and misunderstandings about the fund balance, the budgeting process, the uses to which the funds are devoted, special education, pensions, and so on, they should look at the right-hand side of the home page of the Lower Merion website entitled 2016-17 Budget Information, and those things are very clearly and honestly explained. But what I want to talk about tonight is the most upsetting parts of the complaint, which are the allegations that a public school education should be inherently inferior to a private school education, and that the efforts of the school board and the administration to provide a high-quality education constitute fraud, deceit, and even theft. The complaint alleges, and I quote, that public school education means basic adherence to minimum requirements established by the State Board of Education, end quote. Public education, says the complaint, does not include courses, programs, activities, curriculums, and again I quote, that are normally provided for private institutions at larger expense to patrons who prefer to afford their children education and opportunities that are neither required nor offered nor appropriate education paid for by the taxpayers, end quote. Since I only have a minute left, I just want to say that the seminal United States Supreme Court case of Brown versus Board of Education stated why taxpayers pay for public education. This is a quote from Brown versus Board of Ed. Today, education is perhaps the most important function of state and local governments. Compulsory school attendance laws and the great expenditures for education both demonstrate our recognition of the importance of education to our democratic society. It is required in the performance of our most basic public responsibilities. It is the very foundation of good citizenship, end quote. I am certain that most Lower Merion residents understand that and will not participate in this class. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another speaker?
Yes, there is, and I'm sorry, I can't understand his last name, but it begins with a B. There you go.
I apologize. My name is
That's okay.
Charles Barukowitz. I'm actually from the office of State Senator Dalen Leach. He has been asking me to come here tonight just to say hello to the board and to staff, and just to say that I'm here to answer any questions on behalf of the senator, and anything that the senator can assist with anytime. Feel free to use me as a resource for his office. I'm relatively new to his office. I've been there about a year, but I've recently been put into the role of Director of Constituent Services. So anything related to constituent services or legislative needs, you can let me know, or anytime you can contact our office with any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Brown-Diaz?
My name is Philip Brown-Diaz. I live in Wynwood. Members of the board and Superintendent Copeland. I spoke before this board last year to question a refusal to allow the residents of Lower Merion to vote on the annual property tax increase as allowed by Act 1. You did as you always do, requested a waiver, raised their taxes at a rate higher than inflation, and denied us a referendum. You were elected to represent all of us, not only the households that have children attending Lower Merion schools. Many residents living on retirement income and savings have suffered from almost zero interest rates for the last 7 years. But this school board shows not the slightest concern for the township's oldest residents. Despite your own estimate that the increase in enrollment will conclude in 5 years, this board intends to go on a spending spree for construction when it could consider a temporary increase in class size, which would spare us tens of millions of dollars in tax increases. Sadly, no longer are we a community based on shared memories and cultural legacies. We now have residents who mistakenly believe that high property taxes correlate to higher property values, and choose to ignore the subterfuge and misdeeds surrounding the school budget. These are the same people who, in the pursuit of prosperity, see each new vinyl-clad townhouse built in the township as progress. This is the attitude of transients without any sense of place or continuity. Their vision for Lower Merion ensures that the class of 2016 will never afford a home here. Late-night meetings and a lack of live broadcasts only contribute to the impression that you're disinterested and unconcerned with our opinions. The last election only reinforced that bad attitude. Half of the board was reelected against a feckless opposition in an election with a 25% voter turnout. You interpreted the results as a mandate to do as you please, to give their superintendent whatever he wants, another tax increase, even though the school district has accumulated cash reserve of over $55 million. This school board has replaced its traditional civic virtues of thrift, modesty, and self-restraint with extravagance, arrogance, and self-indulgence. The people of Lower Merion were resigned to despair when one man stepped forward when no one else would, armed only with the law on his side. In response to Arthur Walk's class action lawsuit, the school district said, quote, "It is offensive to the students and families of the district." Not one word acknowledging that all the residents are obligated to pay for the schools. When confronted with resistance, this statement reveals the Lower Merion School District in all its petulance and self-righteousness. Members of the board, you can fight the residents of Lower Merion in court, or you can submit this tax increase to a referendum in April as a gesture of reconciliation. We will accept the results. Do it if you're so confident that the people are on your side.
Sure. Our current enrollment in district enrollment is about 8,340 students. The figures that I raised, the 9,000 going up in the next 5 years, and that was given to us by the Montgomery County Planning Board. And the 9,800 is what they gave us. And of course, whenever you're doing an enrollment increase, anything past 5 years is speculative, but the 9,000 number is what the Montgomery County group is confident in. So that's what we shared. In terms of independent contractors, we always try and balance consultants coming into the district. Certainly when you have people who are of national renown, you want to bring them in, you bring them in for a short period of time. You always balance that against trying to have permanent people who you have to pay pension for, who you have to pay FICA for, who you have to pay all those other kinds of things for. So sometimes bringing in consultants, building capacity, and then having them go away is cheaper in the long run than it is to bringing people on. So we always try and balance that. I always try and balance that and respect that. The last thing I'd like to suggest is that the actual business meeting is a business meeting, and much of the work of this board is done in committees. I know because I spend hours with these folks, and they spend hours going over information. Those committee meetings are held throughout the day, some in the evening, and I would really encourage the community to come out to those. That's where you can really have a conversation, engagement, question and answers, and there's a lot of that, and I think that's to the good of the Lower Merion Board. I just thought I'd mention it.
Please.
Just to highlight a committee meeting on Thursday night, we're having the Communications and Stakeholder Engagement Committee meeting, and actually an agenda item is exploring how we can partner and do more development to potentially fund extra activities here at the district and also engage the community more in the schools and vice versa. We've recently successfully connected some of our clubs with outside resources potentially and sponsors who can support them, like Boeing, which runs a massive program to support robotics teams throughout the country, including here. So we are really trying to think more strategically about how we can do that. So if that's an interest of yours, I welcome anyone here to join us Thursday night and get in that conversation as well.
Thank you, Ms. Ackman. Mr. Roosh, you will cover Sunshine Act for us.
Thank you. There were 2 executive sessions since the last board meeting. One was held on February 8th, 2016, and it dealt with potential reassignments and job duties for identifiable employees. Also, subsequent to tonight's meeting, there was an executive session to discuss matters of tax assessment appeal, litigation, and also land development litigation.
Thank you. The board's upcoming meeting dates, the Communications Committee, as Ms. Ackman just said, will be February 18th at 7 p.m. Legislative for February 25th is canceled, so please note that. February 29th, Curriculum Committee meeting, 8:30 a.m. March 3rd, Policy, 8:30 a.m. March 7th, Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board meeting, 8 p.m. March 10th, Facilities and Purchasing, 8:30 a.m. March 14th, regular board business meeting, 8 p.m. March 16th, Finance Committee meeting at 7 p.m. With that, we are adjourned. Have a good night.